Sacrifice. Sacrifice is woven into the heart of every man. It's why we are drawn to movies like Braveheart, Gladiator, Hacksaw Ridge, Cinderella Man. It's why Die Hard continues to be an all-time Christmas classic. While women love romantic comedies, men love stories where the good guy ultimately bleeds and dies for a great cause. Why? I would say that it's the image of God in us that compels this desire. It's the very nature of God placed in man that causes his heart and his mind to think in such a way. So when Paul instructs husbands in the letter to Ephesus to love like Christ and die for his bride, he's not calling upon some great force that is at odds with men. Rather, he's calling upon what is good and right and natural for men. Now, to sacrifice yourself for others will go against the flesh. Selfishness in you will fight for oxygen, and you must learn to suffocate it. But what is natural, what you were created for, what God desires and wills for us is sacrifice. Gentlemen, you cannot accomplish this through the grit and discipline that you have. The motivation for this kind of lifestyle must be rooted in love. Stay with us. This is the Kavod Family Podcast, the making of a godly man, sacrifice. Well, hello and welcome to the Kavod Family Podcast. My name is Casey Wilson. We have Travis Shook, Justin Bohner, and Danny Antoine this morning. How are you, gents?
Awesome.
We've been doing a series on the making of a godly man. We're in a third part. It's really 4 sections that we broke this up into. It's all the qualifications of what the Bible, according to Timothy and Titus, says that an elder or a leader or an overseer needs to exemplify in order to lead. And so we're using these and we're talking through these qualities and we're just applying it to men in all facets of life, okay? And so this is not just Christian men in all categories, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a police officer, whether you're a firefighter, whether you're a construction worker, you should carry some of these qualities.
Ideally, all of them.
Yes.
Striving for them, right?
Some of them, not all of them.
Yes, there are. I mean, there are exceptions to some professions that require maybe some other areas. If you go into the military and you have to go to war, there's a degree of violence that you have to carry, right? With that, there's some exceptions in this to other things, but in large, men should be this kind of caliber of men. And so today we're going to talk about sacrificial men. We're going to talk about what it means to be not self-willed, self-centered, arrogant, self-focused, sacrificial in the way that you live your life and the way that you relate to others. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
If you guys could, let's set a stage because this is not just serving. This is sacrificial. This is sacrificing. Okay. And so when I think about, and I think it's good that we qualify the two so that way people understand the type of attitude, the type of action that this is requiring us to take. Mm-hmm. Okay. Jesus both served and sacrificed for his people. Okay. And men are called to both serve and sacrifice for their people. It's a requirement. When you think about serving, a general way to think about it would be think about your time, your talent, your testimony, your treasures, the things that you possess, and you use those in order to better somebody's life. Is that fair? Mm-hmm. Your energy even. When it comes to sacrifice, it's a whole nother degree. You're talking about taking something that you hold in high regard or value, your life, your safety, your health,
time,
your
money.
own wealth, and you're sacrificing that for the better of somebody's life. Okay, that's why when we get into portions, Justin, in the blog that you wrote, when it talks about in Romans 8, when it talks about the sacrifice that the Father made of His Son, He's sacrificing the very thing that is most important to Him for the sake of the lost. That's a true sacrifice, right? It's different than just, I came down to work alongside them. I actually gave up what was most important to me. And so that's the tone I want to hit today. And we can get into this a little bit because true fatherhood and being a good husband, both of those will carry a note of sacrifice that is much further than just serving.
I mean, just to push back, I still think that service is maybe the way that I think about service is broader than just doing something for somebody else. To me, the way that I serve my wife is by leading her, by protecting her, by sacrificing of my time for it. That's the way that I serve her, not just, will you get me some water? Yeah. Like, or here is my paycheck, right? I see it more as like, not every kind of service is it's not flat. It's some people, a king serves the people by being a king and leading them, and by not being in submission to them, but by leading over them, right? Like, so service and sacrifice. Yeah. To me, service and sacrifice, maybe in my mind, I'm blending those together a little bit more.
Well, and maybe it's more helpful just to bring up the two to show that there's a degree of, you teach both, right? You teach your children to serve each other, to love each other. It takes a larger effort to teach somebody to sacrifice their life, their good, their safety for the sake of somebody else. And you want them to get there, right? You want your boy to get to a point where he would step in front of and protect your his little sister, and he would do it at the cost of himself, right?
Yeah, maybe I think that might have been what was just tripping that in my mind was whenever a soldier dies, it said blank died in service of his country, right? Like he sacrificed his life while serving. You know what I mean? And so I get the distinction that you're making. I just to paint that full picture, that I guess you can't really separate them because, right, they're just interconnected. How you serve one another is through sacrifice. But sacrifice, yes, is a bigger thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you, Travis, you went into the service, Coast Guard, right? Yeah. There was a point where they talked to you about how you were putting your life at risk for the sake of others, that you might have to do something or act in such a way to rescue or to save or to help somebody else, and it could cost you your life. Yeah. Lydia knew when you went into the military that you were putting your life at risk for the sake of others. Right, that was part of the package. That's usually not on the table with most service efforts that we do for each other. It's just not that degree, right? And the Scripture is calling us as men to put our lives on the table when it comes to safety and protection,
every facet,
and good for others. Yeah.
Every facet.
At least that's the degree that Christ went to, and that the Father was willing to go to for the sake of his people.
And knowing that that's true love, right? And in that you find joy once you get out of yourself and focus on yourself. You're focused on God. While you do that, you are killing yourself in a way, like your wants, your desires, your sin, your flesh. You're putting those to a side for someone you love. And in the process of it, you find joy because that's what Christ did for us. Yeah. But it's so simple. We complicate it because it's every time, it never fails. You get in bed and I'm about ready to go to sleep, going to get up early, and my kids come in and jump in bed and they want to talk. And sometimes you're like, you have to balance. I need to teach you, communicate with me all day. It's not just like when you're trying to push off bedtime that you're going to leverage talking. But then there's other times where I'm like, no, this is a great opportunity. I'm gonna be tired. I'm not gonna whine and complain about how it's inconveniencing me, and I'm gonna give them eye contact and what they need in that moment. And they see it, and they should model that as they get older. But it's easy, especially I'm speaking for myself as a man. Like, you wake up, you do your job, you do what you're supposed to, you provide for your family, and you kind of go through these motions of just staple things a man should do without the depth or the wisdom of God and the parable of the spiritual lessons behind it. And you could do good things and completely miss God the entire time. And your kids could grow up with decent, good morals and genuinely kind of be nice and kind to people, but miss the whole thing. Yeah. So it's crucial to see the opportunities for you to sacrifice, whether it's time or literally your body or you always see those Instagram or whatever, and a father comes home and his hands are all dirty and oily or blood from mechanic. He says, I do this so my little girl's nails can be done. But it's like, it's simple, but it's literally like that. But you need to teach why you're doing that and how God did that for us and the parallels everywhere.
Yeah. I think It's wrapped up in two scriptures for me. First in Ephesians, and then going into Romans. So in Ephesians, when he's given the husband the orders of what your duties are, and also understand, fellas, the order is your husband first before father. It's not my kids come first. When you do that, that's out of order. So he says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her. Christ gave his body for us. He allowed for himself to be the ultimate sacrifice by being tortured to death for us, just so we can do better.
Yeah.
Right? So we can have better. And then you look at what we're told to do in Romans 12. He says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God. Then he says, which is your reasonable service. That means, fellas, that's the least we can do. That's the very least we can do. And the way that Jesus sacrificed himself for me, that's how I'm supposed to sacrifice myself for my wife, be there for my kids the same way. And then that becomes a lifestyle. And now that causes me to do the same thing in the community, you know, whether it be with the kids or the parents I work with. Like I give them my all. When a parent says, you know, these kids look like they walked through fire for you. It's like, well, because they know I'd walk through fire for them first. There's something amazing in being able to sacrifice and to even love first, because don't forget, we only love God because why? He loved us first. Yeah. And for us to do that for another, regardless of what the reaction is powerful. So these two scriptures for me embody that whole thing. For us as men, it's got to be a natural thing for us to sacrifice or to want to sacrifice. And you know, it's like a man who goes to war. Like,
say that again. It's got to become natural.
It's got to be a natural thing.
Okay.
For us to want to sacrifice, not just sacrifice, but actually have a want, a desire to do so. That means you put others before yourself. You understand it's a greater calling. You're not self-seeking, because once you're self-seeking, you're completely going against what Jesus said, which is what? Get rid of the flesh. Yeah. Flesh is the problem. So as soon as you turn inwardly focused, sacrificing for others takes a back seat.
And it's where joy is found. It talks about in John 15, he goes through this whole front section of abiding in him and his love and resting in there. And right after that, he follows up with, these things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, that your joy may be full. So your joy may be full, and you have his joy because you're abiding in him. And right after that, he says, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. So it's you start to think differently, and it's not always a life or death situation, but it's little moments. It's you take the groceries out and it's pouring rain, and you just tell the girls to get in the car, and you and your son put the groceries in and put it up. He's seeing that. He's seeing you not complain. He gets in the car. I've told that story before, but those little moments, you get to display it, but don't miss the chance to point why you're doing it back to him, how he did it for us. You know? Yeah.
Let's talk real practical here, because I would love for gentlemen by the end of this podcast, if they hang with us, to put a taste, like you said, a love to sacrifice, right? You've got to build a desire to sacrifice. It's got to become your natural instinct and not the thing that you just, well, I hope that one day I would be sacrificial, right? Because not all of us are going to get that shining moment where we get to sacrifice ourselves for our family. It might come in subtle acts every day, all week long, and that might be the best that it gets for the sake of it, right? Yeah. And that is a lifetime of sacrifice. Yeah. That is what is a living sacrifice looks like, is an ongoing day after day, daily offering poured out for the sake of your people, your family, right? But I would say at the root of a lot of separation, a lot of singleness, Danny, you see a lot of single parents, a lot of fathers that aren't in the picture when it comes to the kids that are part of your karate school programs, after school programs. I know that at the root of every foster kid that's come in our home, without a doubt, no exceptions, hear me on this, every single one of them, the issue came down to the role of the father in the family's life. His absence caused harm and difficulty to the children. And therefore it put the mother in a difficult situation, and she had to carry a burden that she was not meant to carry and shoulder on her own. And then that causes tension and issues. You see it over and over and over, right?
Absolutely.
And so we as men, there are things in this life that are that are causing us not to want to sacrifice. And we get to a point rather we would grumble and complain and seek after our own wants, our own self-pleasures, desire more hobbies. Do you understand what I'm after here?
Jesus was on point when they asked him, what must I do to follow you? He said, deny yourself, take up your cross, right? Then you can follow me. But what did he start with? Deny yourself. He didn't say deny your past, deny the world around you, the boss that's giving you a hard time. Why? Because none of those things are the issue. The very first issue for every man alive is self. Now, what kind of culture do we live in where they start to do? Get us to be what? Very self-focused.
Yes.
So we teach everyone to do that, and then when they do that, you raise a bunch of irresponsible men who are so self-focused, they don't care about the kids. Now you want to beat them over the head for the very thing you told them to do. It doesn't make sense. And just like you said, at the karate school, you see it every day.
Yeah.
We're saying one thing, and then when they do it, then we want to bash them over the head for it. Well, let's start with the fact that that one thing that we first of all set to do, it's wrong. To be self-focused, it doesn't help, and it does not project sacrifice. It doesn't project any way, shape, or form a need to even sacrifice. Why? Because I'm looking out for me. Okay. What will cause a man to walk out on his kids and on his wife? Because he's concerned about his own feelings.
Okay.
Right? Well, what about theirs? What about theirs? What about giving up something for their betterment? It's no different for when we're at home arguing with our wives. There are times I can look at my wife and I love her so much. I don't care that I feel like I'm right. If I feel like me trying to prove that I'm right is going to hurt her, lock it up. Lock it up. Take a moment, man. It's not going to kill you, to do that. But please, man, sacrifice. If we don't understand that, to me, that should be that's one of the traits that should be at the core of manhood.
So even degrees of communication, winning a conversation, there has to be a level of sacrifice within that.
Yeah,
this is not just
because it's a sacrifice within yourself. Get rid of your need to be right. Get rid of your need to be right, especially if your need to be right comes at the cost of someone else. It's always wrong.
And this is all, I always say this with men because we try to simplify it so we can then replicate it, right? There's no formula with this. Like you have to spend time with God. You have to abide in him. And then you'll know, because there's times in a conversation, you have to lead your wife. She might not want to hear it. And there might be an argument. She might be annoyed. There's times you have to have the resolve to lead her through that. There's other times where you don't need to be right. And it's not a giant deal. You can let her vent, you take it, you move on. And maybe you bring it up later, maybe you don't. But I can't stress enough, there's no formula to this. The only formula is spending time with him, and he lets you know. Yeah. This is where you die willingly and you don't say a word. Lately, I've been trying to balance it with Ree because he's getting older now where he can understand it. So I'll communicate what I'm doing, and he's like, oh, you're trying to make me feel bad. And it's like that dance of no, I'm trying to teach you what you're going to step into.
The larger lesson.
But then self on my side is sometimes I'm annoyed and I want him to see how spoiled he is. And I will dangle something over his head to make him feel bad. And I'm like, all right, I could have taught well with that, but that was just self trying to make him, so there's a line with everything. But to do it is like the beginning. It's the milk, right? To understand you should sacrifice for your family in every way you possibly can. Let God give you the wisdom on how to do it. The next layer to that maturity is teaching why and who did it and who has the wisdom on how to do it and why would you willingly sacrifice your whole life? What's the point? Why does he want us to? To start grabbing there, then you see it, and then you see it in your workplace. You see it in the grocery store. You see all these moments, and you slow down and talk to somebody because they look miserable. Yeah. And you see the bigger picture. But the only way you see it is if you're in your word, you're talking with God, he's communicating to you. Once you figure out that he's enough, it sounds so simple and so corny, but once you grab that he's enough, you read it and you're like, okay, cool, I'll do it. Just show me how. And you go out and you start fumbling your way through it.
Yeah, it's almost like if you spend your life looking at the everyday heroes and mentors that most of our kids and most of us grow up watching, they're usually athletes, people that do great things, people that accomplish goals. If you put your mind and your eye on that all day long, you're going to view the goals of life to be these shining moments where you achieve great success. Is that fair? Yeah. But if you fix your eyes on Christ and on God, their moments, the glory moments of great success look a lot different. Is that fair? When when Jesus sacrifices for his bride, for his wife, it comes at the cost of his life. It's not like they're walking into a great ball or going on their 50th anniversary or going on this great trip. And it's literally my death for your righteousness, right? I will take on all the sin and the pain that you have done, and I will put on you all the righteousness that is mine. And so it's a sacrifice.
Insane, yeah.
It's completely different than the way that we train our eye to see success. Is that fair?
And the sacrifice, so if you talk to the people who have sacrificed to achieve a great thing, they always tell you when they get the thing, it's like, this is it. And they've learned to love the sacrifice.
They love the sacrifice.
Which is a worldly parable to understand, to enjoy the sacrifice. I'm holding my phone, the Bible app's on it, is to grab the sacrifice is giving your life to Christ. And like that day in, day out, die to self, die to what I want what he wants. It's the same thing a fighter has to go through. A track star, an Olympic athlete, they die to what they want to do, the hangouts, the food, and they train to get a thing. We can grasp that worldly. I spend all hours of the night on sales calls. I grow my business, and then I'm successful. And you're like, is this really it? Like, we see it worldly. Grab the spiritual lesson behind it, and then you can start to be more intentional in the day-to-day with your wife and kids. And then you look back, and you're like, wow. Like, Ecclesiastes makes a whole lot of sense. Like, a chasing after the wind. This is Proverbs is full of it, and you're like, the enjoyment of life is enjoying him in this life and sharing it with everybody I could possibly come in contact with.
Yeah.
And being content in that.
Is there a difference? Can we talk real quick? Is there a difference between sacrifice and tolerance? I'll use that word. When we think of tolerance, we sometimes think about accepting the culture or the behavior of something at a sacrifice to self. I'll put up with that, and this is my sacrifice. I'll allow that to take place, and I won't say anything. I won't impose my values on that. That's not what we mean by sacrifice.
I was gonna say, I can't ever look at tolerance as a form of sacrifice.
Right. I want to kill that.
Yeah.
And the sacrifice that we should be living is one that actually does change the behavior or the lifestyle or the community around us. Is that fair? It should cause something better. Jesus' sacrifice absolutely changed everything about his followers' life.
Yeah,
for the better.
I think that as men, as just human beings that have sin in us and have been formed in a certain way, everything we do, we expect a reciprocal act back.
For sure.
If I say hi, I expect you to say hi. If you don't say hi and you keep walking, I'm offended. That trigger, I don't just go, well, like that doesn't not register. Like that registers something in my mind. If I work, the reciprocal act is getting paid. That if I don't get paid, that I don't just go, well, and just continue on with my life. If I say I love you to my wife and she ignores me, I expect her to say I love you back, or I know something's wrong. At the heart of this whole sacrificial picture that I don't want to miss, that I think is really the thing that a guy needs to understand to be able to even begin down this road, is the fact that, like Ephesians 5, like Danny pointed out, there is no command to the husband to ensure that the wife is fulfilling the command to the wife to submit. The only command is, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church, right? There's not a added response.
It's not
if there's submission, then there's sacrificial love. If there's sacrificial love, then there's submission. And so your job first is to love. And that picture, how is that even possible? How can I do that? How can I love? How can I lay down my life in love for my wife, for my children, for people around me, and without the immediate gratification of reciprocation of something, right? Well, Jesus died for the bride before she loved him.
Knowing
right?
some would never choose him.
Like the bride wasn't the bride until he died, right? He died alone. Now read Isaiah 53, the end of 52, all the way through 53. And so he's the picture, and men, the point of this, my main point, not to belabor this and take from you guys, is at the heart of not understanding sacrifice as a man is at the heart of misunderstanding the gospel. Galatians 2:20. I've been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. The life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God. And here's this line that you can read and totally skip over, but this is one of the most important lines in the entire Bible. Who loved me, right, the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Number one. You will never sacrifice any. You can sacrifice your whole life. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 13, you can go get burned like that Buddhist guy in Vietnam who sat in the middle of the street and lit himself on fire and went straight to hell. You can give yourself to be burned, and if you don't have love, you've done nothing. You've gained nothing. But he loved us and gave himself for us, and so the first thing is understanding that Jesus loved me, gave himself for me. Now I am loved perfectly, like we always talk about. My identity is now beloved because of him, not based on how well my wife loves me, my kids love me, my friends love me, the world loves me. Now that frees me. I'm now dead. Justin is dead, and he can go live as Christ for other people and sacrifice now. Now my sacrifice is just, well, what else am I supposed to do? Yeah. He loved me and gave himself for me. Now I'm free to go love and love everybody else regardless of how they return that, right? We're so needy. We're so needy outside of Christ. And there's men who love Jesus and want to know God better, and they want to sacrifice for their families, but they haven't realized that they're dead. You're dead. Just go. You're free now. You're free to fail. You're free to not do it like you should. Like you're free to stumble. You're free to all that because you're approved in God's sight based on Christ, not based on how sacrificial you are or how devoted you are or how faithful you are, right? And just misunderstanding that gospel piece skews our view of how God sees us, and then that messes up how we see everything else. And we miss the fact that you have the opportunity, you, dad, husband, father, are the only one who gets to show the gospel to his family every single day by sacrificing like Christ. Yeah. It's not how good your family devotions are. It's not how much about the Bible that you know. It's not about how frequently you go to church. Your children's view of God is directly impacted by your looking like him, right? And that comes from being sacrificial every day, right?
Yeah, if your children, I love what you're saying, Justin. If your children never love you, their obedience will always be off, right? If they never love you nor the standard that you teach, they will never own it and possess it. And so the root issue of all of this comes down to our love. So Christ came and offers himself, right, as a sacrifice of love, that we would see it, that we would understand it, that our eyes would be open, that we would know that he loved us first so that I can love him. And then obedience or response flows from a place of my heart's been changed. I love you. Therefore now I will. Right. And that is different than every other world religion that's out there. Right. Everything else is merit-based, success-based, rule-based, law-based. This is, I'm going to win your heart, and when I win your heart, it's going to completely change everything else.
And it's huge what you said, though. The sacrifice, if they never love you back, it doesn't matter. Your duty is still to love them. If your wife never loves you back, your duty is to love her like Christ loved the church. Christ died for us, knowing that some of us would never stop looking at TikTok reels to pay attention to him. Like the world and Satan has designed everything to distract us from him. We're going to face the same thing when we fight for our wife and our kids, our employees, or whatever it is. They're going to be distracted, and their response should not change our actions at all.
How do you, this is so important, as a man, okay, because we're talking about this, how do you help a man get to a point that he trusts that process and buys into it, that rather than beating his wife into a loving response or into obedience to whatever he wants, How do you convince him that if you want your wife to love, to enjoy, to respect, to honor you, the best thing that you can do, the absolute best thing that you can do is love her with such a sacrificial love that you take no account of the records of wrong, that you never keep a list of the things that she's done, right? That you don't hold those over her begrudgingly. Like, how do you convince a man that this is the best plan to build a loving family?
That 2 Corinthians 3:18, the verse on beholding in a mirror the glory of the Lord, right? The Spirit in you looking at Christ changes you to start looking like Christ. That's what that verse means. It's a wild verse. Beholding Jesus and thinking about Christ. And I know I'm tired of saying that this sounds cheesy and we say it all the time. It's Christianity. Some people have kind of ruined the like, well, Jesus is the point, man. Like some of the hippie Christian, like, dumbing everything down and not ever wanting to learn what this is really about, just saying it's all about Jesus that we made in our own image has kind of ruined it. But the point really is, look at Christ and how he lived. Like, if I'm trying to teach a guy, I would say, how often are you really looking at Christ and what he did? He was so free because of his identity at his baptism. He was so free that he could serve sacrificially the man who was the agent of his betrayal.
Yeah.
He washed all their feet, and he could have gotten to him and been like, you know what you're going to do. I know, I'm not doing this. No, he was so free that he said, I'm going to love you anyways. Right?
Because he didn't need to be loved.
Yes, he knew. He said, this is my beloved son. Okay, got it. Now
Real
I
quick,
can go.
He didn't need to be loved because he was already loved.
Exactly.
That was locked in.
But it's that joy set before him and the freedom in that to go and lay that down. And we can look at Jesus and go, okay, everything he did for the disciples and for the broader crowds, right? There were crowds and then there were disciples who were more than the 12. There were people who followed him and loved him. They just weren't in the inner circle. And then there were people who hated him. There were Pharisees. There were mockers. There were scoffers, right? But everything he did was a calculated sacrificial move on behalf of getting to the cross and teaching them about him on the way there, right? Everything he did was calculated. He would stop talking, walk through the crowd, unable to be touched like a phantom, just so that he could get out so that they didn't say something that made him get arrested too soon.
Yeah.
Everything he did was a calculated move to make the ultimate sacrifice. And so you look at Jesus and go, okay, Peter failed him. He said, you're going to fail me. Then he does fail him. And he doesn't say, now when you come back, I'm going to say, I told you so, and hang this over your head. He says, when you come back, strengthen your brothers. He comes back and he's sitting there at the fire with him in John 21, and he loves him. He allows him to not love him back as much as he should.
No, he doesn't
allows
correct him, not even once.
And he says, do you love me? Do you love me?
That
That's good enough. I just wanted you to be honest, right? And so you look at every interaction that Jesus has all throughout the Gospels, and you see that is the exact way you should love your wife and love your kids. He didn't always tell them what they wanted to hear. Like, what we joke about. My mom wants to ask you a question. Can my son sit on either side of you when you come into your kingdom? And he says, no, they can't handle that.
Yeah.
Like, they can't handle what I'm about to have. They're going to have to handle some. They're going to die. It's going to be bad for them, but nothing like what I'm going to have to deal with, right? He told them the thing that they didn't want to hear. They didn't want to hear that. He told their mom, like, no, your sons are brats.
Yeah,
like,
sacrifice doesn't.
He told their mom, sacrifice isn't always nice. It's kind because it does the right thing, not the nice thing, right? Like,
that's
and
well said.
he sacrifices at every moment. At every moment, he sacrificed and did the sacrificial, loving thing when he told the rich young ruler, "You can't come with me." He told them. It says in Luke, I think, he looked at him and he loved him. He loved the man and said, you didn't do this one thing. Sell all you have and come and follow me. He told him the thing and let him walk away. Didn't stop him, right? With sacrificial love. He didn't stop the rich young ruler from leaving out of love, like out of sacrificial love. Who knows? Some people think that was John Mark, right? That came back. But But there's still this picture of if I'm trying to teach a guy, I have to say, how much are you really looking at Christ? How much do you know about Jesus? Because it comes down to, in every situation in your life, we talked about this a couple episodes ago. What would Jesus do if he were me in this situation? Every single time, every time. When you're about to hold a door for somebody, when you're in a hurry and you're about to cut in front of the old lady to put your buggy back, anything. When the old lady's trying to load groceries into her car, I don't know, mentally I'm at Walmart right now, and it's a place, it's a high stress area, right? But
Why
like,
is that so stressful?
literally, what would Jesus do if he were me in this situation? Like, it's that simple, but you won't know what Jesus would have done, and you won't be able to start to act like him if you don't know the things that he did, if you don't know what he looks like.
if you're not looking at him.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, to trust the process, like the short answer I would give is the very definition of love is telling you how to be love. Take notes from him, learn from him, become like him. The very definition of love, which every woman wants, told us how to do it and gave an example.
Yeah.
Read it and
Gave
become
us
like
the power
that.
with the Spirit.
Yeah. So for me to hold on to any other advice is to hold on to.
Literally, I mean,
So hold on to self.
seriously.
Do not be self-willed, right?
yeah.
The reason I wanted to talk through this is because I just think it's
Sure.
it sounds so simple, but it's the honest issue that men struggle with, right?
It's hard to do. We're not saying it's
Yes.
easy. It's hard to do.
It's not spoken of. It's not
It's
spoken
simple.
about enough,
but
honestly.
homes get divided and divorce takes place and men leave because I had no respect when I got home. They lipped off to me. They talked back to me. They don't respect me. That's what it comes down to, right?
Because of what? Serving self. Now, what if you
yeah.
remove that out of the picture and realize that God told you to love your wife as Christ loved the church? He didn't say to do that as long as she acts lovable in a lovable way.
Like Jesus was mocked. He was ridiculed while he was being beaten. He was hung up, called the King of Jews. Like he literally
was
embodied
everything
and could have, with a snap of a finger, wiped out everybody and done whatever he wanted, you know? So it's like, whenever I am in my sulking and I'm driving home normally and it's quiet, I'm pouting. He's like, really? And I'm like, sometimes I'll entertain the conversation. I'm like, yeah, well, it's this and this. He's like, well, just remember my life and what I did. And I'm like, dang it. Can I just sulk? Like I want to just feel a certain way for a while. And he has a good dad's like, okay, I hear you, I see you, but not a chance.
Yeah.
That's not.
All right, well, let's begin to land this plane for dads that want to impart this to their sons. Maybe you know and understand what this means to be sacrificial, but you want to train it into a young heart. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. God has given us practical means. I mean, we live in a world that God designed and ordered. He put it into motion. He still moves within all of its boundaries, right? From the very beginning, the very first son of man, Adam, was given tasks and responsibilities. He wasn't placed in a garden and everything was perfect. It's not vacation. That's not what heaven is going to be like, right? There was work to be done. There was a garden to take care of. There was animals to name and manage and order and put into to rule over. Have dominion over these things. And so we live in a world that needs to be taken dominion of. Agreed?
Yeah.
And everyday chores and everyday tasks, every day there's ongoing things that we need to be allowing our children or ourselves to be taking part in that cause us to learn how to sacrifice. Is that fair? I mean, part of the reason why this world is falling apart and we have to work against it is to train us and to teach us that we need to be sacrificial. Agreed?
Totally.
I would say this. If you look at it, for every man that's out there, you want to love your sons by learning how to become love for your sons. You learn how to become love for your sons by allowing for yourself to be loved by God. Because there's a massive difference between saying you love God versus being loved by God. So much easier for everyone to explain what it looks like for me to love God. But almost 100% of the time when I ask the question, what does it mean to you to be loved by God? What is that?
Yeah.
That's a harder question for people to ask because we don't spend time thinking about it. Allow yourself to be loved. You can't give what you don't have. So if you don't know how to be loved, how are you going to give it? If you can't even receive love, how are you going to have an expectation for somebody else to receive love from you? As a son, your best deal to become a good father, you have to learn how to become a good son first. Why? Because in becoming a good son, what are you allowing for yourself to be loved, to receive love? And the way that you receive that love is the way that you'll love, your son. And the ultimate love that we can never get is the love from the ultimate dad. And if we receive that love from the ultimate dad, trust me, if we love the way he loves, everything turns out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. Look, let's just be this. Sometimes we get things so complicated. Not us. We're all kind of dumb, but
I'm not offended.
Like we're all. I mean, we're not gonna like make it too tricky, But like, there's a level where, Deuteronomy 6. It says,
Talking about
yes.
Shamar.
It says, keep your kids with you, do the right thing. They'll see you, and they'll do the right thing. If you had no hands to write and no mouth to speak, how would you show your sons how to be sacrificial men? You would just sacrifice. There has to be the reality of how often are you with your kids, and how often are you telling them to be sacrificial or being sacrificial in front of them, right? Like there has to be the conviction that I am this example for my kids. I'm not Jesus for them. I'm not going to save them.
Right.
But I am the picture of Jesus for them. There's a reason why he's not on earth. We're not Muslims. We don't fly across the world to go stare at a rock. Jesus is in heaven praying for us right now, and now we represent him. That's why we're Christians here on earth, and our kids aren't saved by us, but the picture of the Savior comes through us. And so for you men with your sons, keep them close. With your daughters, keep them close. And with your sons, sacrifice for their mother and for them in front of them all the time. And don't bring attention to it, but just do it. And when you can, pour into them. Just do it. Don't go, do you see that? Now that's what you need to do. Just do it, and don't be a liar. And when you mess up, apologize and repent and keep showing the gospel. And for your daughters, hold them to a different standard than you do your sons. Fairness is not Fairness is off the table. Fairness is off the table. There's like 14 verses for boys in Ephesians 5 and one verse for women. But we only talk about the one verse for women. Make it unfair for your boys and your girls so that the girls feel loved and sacrificed for, and the boys feel like they had to sacrifice.
Right.
Just
100%
show it.
agree.
Just show
100%.
it, right? Like, that's all it is show it and apologize when you don't. And that's it. Like, that's the whole thing.
To add to that, and this has to be done with wisdom from God and not from a look at me, but you do have to be in your word to be able to give an account for why you do what you do. Because I can tell you, I've been around people, I've been around my son, they'll watch you do it, and they're so distracted, they'll miss everything. So do it. And don't be like, look at me while I do it, but do it. And God will show you the time and say, hey, remember when I did that? Do you know why I did that? And then you'll see the gears. They're like, because you're the man, because you're supposed to. And there's just worldly thoughts that they think. And like, that's fair, but it's in the Bible. Did you know that? Okay. Like, Reed's like, hey, I hate this. I hate this. I say, hey, he doesn't do that. We're not about that. And you can tell he's like, really? And it's not a teachy look at me. I'm doing the thing, but also, why am I doing the thing? I'm doing the thing because of this. So just make sure you come back to this every time.
And at the same time, at the cost of like a biblical caveat, I guess, in this, we still have to not lose sight. And again, under God's guidance, to have the ability to say with confidence, follow me as I follow Christ. That's what Paul said. But what does that look like? That means follow me as I follow Christ. The things that I do that are Christ-like, those things you follow. The things that I'm out there acting stupid, doing dumb stuff, you don't follow that, right? Follow me as I follow Christ. So now if you place that burden on somebody else, what it does, it places a responsibility on you daily to start thinking for yourself. How much am I really following you, Lord? I want to do this thing well. At the end of this, I want you to look at me and say I did it well. But I need to be humble enough in that leadership to be a follower and say, you know what? I want to look more like you. I need to follow you. And it's not so that I can set an example. It's because you're worthy for me to do so. And in doing so, it will become an example consequently because of it.
All right, let's close this out, and I want to do it with just real practical advice. For me, number one, take a look at your schedule, take a look at your calendar. Is your week filled with things for you? And if it is, if it's just day after day, where you look at your schedule and you go, you know what, I've got about an hour where I'm available to my children, then you need to start to cut that fat. Is that fair? If you don't make time for the people that you love, you cannot sacrifice for the people that you love. Fair?
Yep. Fair.
What about you guys?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah,
I'm going to give examples of that, but I agree with that.
I mean,
I think
you
just the practical, concrete saying that it might sound abstract to you, but human beings in Christ are amphibious. I think John Eldredge said, like, you have to learn how to live in the water and on the land. You have to learn how to live right here, right now, and with God.
In heaven.
Right, like with God right now. And there's a level to where if you are not habitually living with your
mind
with
to
an
Christ,
active mind that says Christ is in me by means of the Holy Spirit, then you'll never know what God wants you to do in a given situation. If he's far away somewhere, then you're only operating out of what you think you should do. And you'll never be able to sacrifice in that moment unless while I'm talking right now, I'm going, God, is this even like what I'm supposed to be saying? Like, what is it?
All the time.
All the time. Like
All the time.
you have to learn to live in two places at once. Like that's the reality. That's the blessedness of life in Christ, but you'll never be able to sacrifice. So that's why during the day, just force yourself. I have 8, 10, 12, 2, and 4. My watch goes off, an alarm. And it's literally so that I go, oh, and I stop and pray. It's not because I'm holy. It's because I won't think about God on my own. Like I need to be reminded. I need to call my mind back to God and say, okay, you're here. You're present. You're with me. You're in me. What do I do?
Have you ever seen a son at an athletic event, any kind of game, soccer, basketball, whatever, constantly, how often, every minute, their eye comes over and it looks at dad, checks in on dad, right? Like to live like that would be.
We lose it.
Yes.
Yeah, we lose it.
Oh,
But that you got to regain that as a dad.
Live with a greater awareness of his presence. But Jesus showed us that he did that. If you look at the story of Nicodemus, he puts it like in plain English in that story. It's in John chapter 3, I think. But to live with a greater awareness of his presence and everything else keeps us in the right place every time. You know what I'm saying? So what does that mean? Like even you go to the grocery store, before you get out the car, take a moment. Set your affection on him. The Bible says you're limited by your own affections. If I take a moment, set my affections on him before I go in, now I can walk into anywhere with a greater awareness of him because of that. I'm not saying that it's simple, but if it becomes a lifestyle, it is simple. So it's about how do we make that a lifestyle instead of just keep trying. I don't want to try. I want to be a son. I don't want to try to be a son. I want to be his son.
That's good.
And that's what I'm learning how to be.
It's awesome.
Well, let's wrap it up. Gentlemen, this is the Kavod Family Podcast. Kavod means weighty and glorious. And for us, the most weighty and glorious figure in life is Christ. He's the one that we follow. He's the one that called us to follow after him. And when you do that, he's going to sanctify and absolutely transform your life. He really can take your affections, your mind, your will, your desires, your wants, and change them so that way you go through the day loving to sacrifice for your family and for those that you love. You don't have to waste the rest of your life thinking about bass boats and holidays and fun outings and all the things that are frivolous and will ultimately burn away. Is that fair? Christ can rescue you from that wasted life. You really can become a good dad. I hope this helps. God be with you.